Welcome, Atlanta United family, to another episode of Resurge The Spike ATL. Here with one of my hosts, James. Tommy was unable to be here today, but no, he'll probably be watching later on. Here we also have a very special guest from AJC, Doug Robertson, who covers Atlanta United content. Doug, glad to have you here. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Doug. So, just wanted to start off, just basically, with the basics. How did you get into covering Atlanta United in the first place?
Um, well, it started with some of the first friendlies that came back to the Georgia Dome back 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I started covering those. I grew up playing soccer. I've always enjoyed the sport. And I started covering the franchise when it was a rumor to join Major League Soccer. And then from that point forward, kind of became my beat. And then I moved on to it from kind of part time, along with some other stuff I was covering, to full time about midway through the 2017 season.
Cool, cool, man. So I mean, just like I said, we were just gonna ask you, in the beginning, a couple questions in general. But you being a guy that covers Atlanta United, you have access to some of the training sessions. And what's one thing that, even with the coaching changes that we've had and everything, what's the one thing that you've got to say has kind of stuck the same, even throughout, like I said, the different processes, different coaches, different players going through? What's one thing that, it just has to remain the same during the trainings?
One thing that has to remain the same.
Yeah, or that, it's just like a tradition, or like, like a superstition or something like that, that's
Oh,
just
um, really, there hasn't been anything. We didn't get to watch sessions under Heinze because of COVID. So the last ones we got to see were Stephen Glass. Actually, we didn't even get to watch Stephen Glass's because of COVID. So Frank DeBoers were the last we got to see until Pineda was named manager. We didn't get to see Valentino. I don't think either. Um, but now they'll end the sessions with they start usually go through Ramona's at first, and then they'll end it with some of the strikers and midfielders trying to beat the goalkeepers in penalty kicks or in shooting exercises. That's the constants they keep doing every session after every session. And they'll go sometimes 15, 20, 30 minutes after training is over, having those little contests with each other to see who can last the longest without getting a shot stopped.
Hmm, curious, because that's actually one of the questions that I was gonna head into. Like, well, also on the defensive end, but I mean, finishing, has been an issue. Not just with under Pineda, but the last 3 years, basically, after Joseph went down, and that's exactly what I was gonna get into. Like, if that's something that Pineda emphasizes on, like, during the training sessions, or well, you kind of pointed it out already that, guys, kind of go on their own, and or after, stay afterwards, and, do their thing.
Yeah, he's emphasized it. All the managers emphasize it. It's just they create lots of chances. They don't create, in my opinion, enough quality chances. If you look at their rankings, they're like second, I think, in Major League Soccer in chances created, maybe first, but they're around 16th, 17th, 18th for big chances created. So that's the difference between them and a team like NYCFC, who's first or second in both those categories. It's um it's a problem that when they get near that 18-yard box, it's like they just don't quite know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the stats from Columbus, I mean, 24 shots and only two big chances, and both of them were missed. So that's definitely a point of emphasis. But also, I mean, going back with finishing, I mean, we technically scored 4 goals on Saturday, so that was somewhat of progress.
Yeah, that was progress. And the 4 goals comment by Pineda was actually kind of funny because at first he said three, and I was sitting directly across the table from him, and I went four. And he said, "Yeah, four," because I thought both those calls were wrong. I need the Mascara one, I thought was a lot closer than people were making it out to be. I'm surprised it didn't get a review because the camera angle is a little bit like the angle at home plate, where things that might look like a strike at this angle are actually off. And so on that camera angle, while it looks like he may be off, he may have actually been on.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought on that.
That was similar to like the Gutman angle because that was a little bit interesting too with during the Cincinnati game.
Yeah, but that was the
I
best
watched
game.
it back and I was like, that's a lot closer than I thought when I was watching it live on TV.
Yeah,
so.
That was the best game they played, I think, in a really, really long time.
So, you know, we have a guy here, Miggy Almiron 24. He was like, "Who's your favorite player this year?" I mean, season's not over, but so far, who's the guy that stood out for you?
Oh, Thiago Almada's having a good year, I think. Andrew Gutman has been what Atlanta United hoped. I think for potential, Caleb Wiley and George Campbell are having really good years. They're both so young, people kind of forget that. And neither were expected to play a whole lot this year. But I think they're both going to be really big building blocks going forward.
Yeah. So, also in the, you know, also going into the defensive part of the question that I was asking earlier, you know, set pieces and man marking has killed Atlanta United, and also, you know, is that something that is worked on during training, or is that something that is just kind of a normal thing, but not so much focused on?
No, they focus on it. We don't get to see that part of the sessions. They don't let us watch the tactical part, which is the executing or defending of set pieces. But we know they do it, or otherwise we wouldn't be escorted to the, or not escorted, but asked to go to the media trailer that's on the other side of the practice facility. And it's just, you know, they've given up 10 goals on set pieces, like 12 if you count penalty kicks this season. It's bizarre. Half of them have probably come from not clearing that first ball, getting the second ball coming right back at them again, and just, I guess they relax for half a second and they get punished every time. You have to think at some point the odds are going to flatten out, you know, but it doesn't appear like that's going to happen, at least this season.
Yeah, I mean, Columbus's corners defense wasn't good either. I mean,
no,
there was fans on Twitter for Columbus asking like, we need a set piece coach. And I was like, yeah, we feel the exact same way. Like,
well, if you notice, Columbus played man-to-man on its set piece defending, and I think Atlanta United was able to take advantage of that a little bit, particularly with the runs to the back post, because every one of Atlanta United's corner kicks that they were successful on were back post runs by somebody. And you could see it happening. I'm sitting in the press box telling Johannes sitting beside me, Sosa's at the top of the key, he's unmarked, he's going to go to the back post. And it happened like 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So also, I mean, like you mentioned earlier with Heinze, you know, there was no media availability and all this, but that changed whenever not Valentino, but yeah, somewhat whenever Valentino came in, but then Pineda was appointed the head coach and has kind of brought this attitude, like, you know, the positive attitude and all this, but you know, him being an inexperienced coach, I mean, I feel like it's kind of getting to him, or it's kind of like catching up to him at this point. Because there's been some results where, you know, you just feel like if some things could have kind of been changed around sooner, or maybe lineup wise. I think against New York we saw that where Sosa was basically the only center midfield. I mean, the guy was getting picked apart and there was just no help whatsoever. Things like that. And I mean, and if like for an experienced coach, I mean, he let that go on for so long, and that's things that, you know, for Pineda is, you know, he has to kind of start picking his head up when it comes to that kind of stuff. But what do you think that Pineda is like really like that tactical mastermind that they sold us that he was, or that he mentioned that he was before he came to Atlanta United?
Well, to correct something I said earlier, the first training session we were able to watch was under Valentino. That was the first one post Heinze. And some of that with Heinze was COVID protocols. The league wouldn't allow you to go watch training. And then those dropped around the same time he was let go, and then we were able to watch sessions under Valentino. Now, to your question, I think it's too early to tell because of all the injuries the team has had this year. He has not been able to roll out consistent lineups. I asked him last week if he knows yet his best formation and best 11, and he said they're still not sure, but they're getting close to figuring it out because now they've finally got players back that are healthy. The only ones who are out are Hazetu for however long, and then the guys who are season-ending injuries. The short-term injury guys, well, except for Hyman, I guess, are back. So as he was joking, we actually got to fill out a whole bench for the last 2 games, and they haven't been able to do that in a long time. So as he starts to get the talent on the field and the depth on the bench, I think you'll be able to figure out his tactical acumen better than what we've seen so far. The Sosa as the lone center midfielder, I didn't think he got picked apart so much as that the players just didn't have any urgency. And you see that sometimes when bad things happen to them in games, they just kind of lose their confidence for some reason. That goes back to way before. That goes back to DeBoer. So I don't think it's specific to any manager. I don't know what the reason is, but we've all seen it happen over and over and over again. So I think we just got to be a little bit patient with Pineda. I understand the frustration. I don't agree with every decision he's made, personnel or formation or tactical, but he has tried a lot of different things in an attempt to get points. And when you look at the fact that they've had 20 different injuries take players out for multiple games this season, and they still have an outside shot at the playoffs, I think, speaks decently of him, especially considering the team doesn't seem to have any money to spend on bringing in any talent in the summer window either, unlike other clubs.
Just a little interjection about like the midfield where we saw in the Red Bulls game. Sosa kind of felt a little isolated. To me, it was like Marcelino Moreno wasn't really that cover guy. And I feel like a player like Sejdic, which we saw in Columbus, and, a guy like Rossetto too, is more helpful to the midfield, especially, in defense, because I just felt like Red Bull had just unlimited space and there wasn't really many guys covering back. And I feel like with Amar Sejdic, you get a little more help on the defensive side.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Red Bulls, they don't stop running. And I don't know if you could say that about Atlanta United's players.
True.
Even on offense, you still see a lot of kind of standing around and watching instead of making runs down the wings or through the middle to try to make defenders make decisions. You don't see a lot of that.
Yeah, and that's kind of been like the ongoing theme as well. We kind of have at times whether it's first half we come out right off the bat just having chances and all this and being on the front foot, and then all of a sudden second half comes and the team just falls apart. They're unorganized. There's no there's just no organized. Like the back line is basically all over the place. On the midfield as well, they're not marking who they're supposed to. Just personally, do you think that's more of the emotional side of it? The players just kind of getting, I guess too caught up with, the game or whatever? Or does it come to the physical aspect, that players are not just ready for the full 90 minutes?
No, I think they're physically ready. I just think, as I said earlier, when something bad happens, giving up a goal in the first half, giving up a goal or in the second half, they just kind of fall apart for 10, 15 minutes. And then they'll get scored on again because they've lost their focus. And, when you lose your focus, when you lose the concentration, you're going to forget about your assignments. You're going to forget about your fundamentals. And that just kind of happens to them sometimes. And again, I don't know why. I think if they had some sort of better on-field leader, more vocal on-field leader, that maybe that wouldn't happen so often. I think we're seeing Parata kind of become that guy, seeing Joseph start to, I think, be more comfortable being that guy when he's on the field, but it's still just not as consistent as it probably needs to be.
So, you just mentioned Joseph. The guy's got one more year left in his contract, and he's looking to get a new DP contract. He hasn't really been what we thought he would be this season. He had that cleanup and earlier in the season. Uh, and there's been times where, I mean, he hasn't really had the best opportunities as well, but he's missed some pretty good chances where you're like, I mean, Vintage Joseph was not going to miss that. But just what are your opinions on what, I mean, it is kind of hard to judge. Obviously, new president coming in and all of this, but a lot of decisions to be made basically when it comes down to whether they renew him, whether they try to get him to a TAM deal, or what's going to be the deal with him, or they go out and get a new 9.
The team has an option on his contract for 2024. So he could have as many as 2 years left with Atlanta United if they exercise that option. Right now, it's kind of like with Pineda. I think it's still a little bit too difficult to tell what Joseph has remaining. I think he's still getting confidence in the knee, getting confidence with his teammates. They're getting confidence with him. When you see him trying bicycle kicks and things like that, like we've seen 2 games ago, I think it was, I think that's a good sign that he's starting to get more confidence in his knee. But now you need to see that burst from him. And you need to see him, in my opinion, want the ball more. Right now he gets it and he gets rid of it. And to me, a confident striker doesn't get rid of the ball. They want that ball. They try to beat somebody. They try to get a shot off. And you just don't see a lot of that with Joseph right now.
Yeah, and more on like contracts. We've talked to Joe Patrick and Tyler Pilgrim about basically what needs to change in the offseason, and we've all kind of come to the consensus over the weeks that the midfield needs a complete overhaul. So do you think that's true, or should we look at another spot where this team can improve?
I don't know if it needs a complete overhaul. I think it has a lot of players who are just way too similar. So it's nice that they have some interchangeability, but they need, in my opinion, a hammer as a defensive midfielder. Somebody who's going to cover that defense and not lose their idea of the zone they're supposed to be in. I think Santiago Sosa is much better as a center midfielder than a defensive midfielder. I know that's how Atlanta United wants to play him, but you saw his passing against Columbus. He's a very good passer. To me, he's decent defensively. I would like to see him get somebody covering him and let him kind of move forward a little bit and see what he can do. He's obviously a scoring threat, as we saw against Columbus, when he can get forward. But I think Atlanta United they're going to have to make some hard decisions about Hizetu, Hyndman, even Abara, maybe, because they view him not as a defensive midfielder, but as a central midfielder, which kind of stunned me. I mean, Bocanegra said that 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. But to me, they need a little more variety in the skill set than what they have right now.
Could that be like what he's asking with the crazy rumor about the Moreno swap deal to Boca Juniors? Any thoughts on that? Or like more of a player like, Rossetto, Hyndman, and the other guys that, you feel like are too similar and they don't fit with Santiago Sosa?
I haven't heard the Moreno rumor. What is that one?
It was the player from Boca Juniors, and there was an apparent swap deal. It was kind of far-fetched, but it's gained a little traction. But it's from Argentina. We weren't really sure on that rumor.
There was nothing really like concrete on it, but there was a lot of like rumors on it. But I think it was Almendra, I think is his last name.
Yeah, Almendra from Boca Juniors.
I'm not quite sure why Boca Juniors would want Moreno, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, that's what some Argentina outlet came out with that a couple weeks ago, and we were also confused about that. And
they may be seeing things that I don't see.
Yeah.
Then I think, as I wrote earlier this year, and a lot of people killed me on Twitter until most of them decided I was right. He's a good player. He could be a great player if he would work on his left foot a little bit more, work on passing and moving a little bit more. Right now, he's too one-footed, and right now he dribbles just too much, in my opinion. And grinds down the offense when he gets the ball. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. Um, the problem that the team has with Zetu and Hyman is Hyman is coming off 2 injury seasons. He makes a ton of money, so no one's going to want to take that trade on their budget. Zetu is one of those guys who, nice guy, good guy in the locker room, but just doesn't seem to really do any one thing that will make you say, yeah, I want to pay $600,000 for him.
Yeah.
In a cap league. So that's what I'm talking about with the tough decisions that Atlanta United's got to make and problems they got to figure out. And both those guys are under contract too for next season. So that adds to the difficulty.
And the guys that are off the contract, what about? I mean, not on the contract, but they're. What about guys like Parada, guys like Dom Dwyer and Cisneros? What do you think that they have some type of spot for the team next year?
Dwyer has a 2-year contract, so he's on the team next year unless he asks for a trade. The only guy who's out of contract or the team doesn't have an option on among the non-loanees is Mikey Ambrose. That's it. Everybody else is under contract. Cisneros' loan was extended. He said he wants to stay. I don't know if Atlanta United has the money to get him a contract that he's going to want. Parata's a loanee. So if Atlanta United wants him, it's going to be the same deal with Tigres. They're going to have to sell somebody. And Godinho, his loan is only a 6-month loan. And I don't see Atlanta United bringing him back.
Yeah, I mean, looking back to what you said about Moreno, I agree too. He had that one chance against Red Bull, and he totally, he didn't do great. And Pineda kind of chewed him out for him and subbed him off really early that game. And he obviously didn't play against Columbus. And that's obviously a telling sign because it's been tough all year. There's been things, people are like Almada and Moreno, they just play on top of each other. It hasn't really been a good connection. And yeah, just to add on to that, I don't think he makes that 11 anymore because it was interesting. He kind of chewed him out and he didn't play him against Columbus, which I thought was kind of weird. But
the problem that you have when you have Moreno and Araujo on the field at the same time, if you don't switch them and have Araujo on the left and Moreno on the right, is they both tend to drift in on their stronger foot. And so then that starts to take away space from the attacking midfielder, the central midfielder, and the striker. But if you put them on the opposite sides, on their strong-footed sides, Araujo on the left and Moreno on the right, Moreno will not cross the ball. We've seen that. He doesn't cross the ball well at all. Araujo will put in crosses. And so that's kind of another issue with Moreno a little bit, is being so one-footed that he still won't put in the crosses. And what's funny is even short passes, he won't make them with his left foot. He tries to hit them with the outside of his right foot. It's very odd to me.
Yeah.
So we had a video on here, about the, one of the goals that we gave up this past weekend against Columbus, which shows man marking, just being poor, just a poor reading of the play overall, honestly. And I mean, this is basically exposing one of the right back here, which in this case was Brooks Lennon. But it's not just picking on him, but I mean, at times it seems like Lennon on the defensive end, he just kind of lacks that reading of the play. And even when it comes to the offense, I mean, he just kind of seems to overdo like the crossing. I mean, there's not really a good end product, to his passing. So I mean, just we're gonna play this real quick, James. I know you're gonna break this down a little bit better than we are. Let me put the full screen.
Yeah, that was the first goal there.
Oh, yeah. So literally, you can see there's 3 Atlanta United players in the back line, and you see the one guy in the center, and there's another one making a run in the bottom left of the screen. So
yeah, Chucho's not even on the screen too. And it's basically a broken play, and then boom.
I mean, you just look at that and you could just tell like the positioning, everything, it's just so off from the players, and it at times it looks like it's simple mistake or like fundamental like reading of the play. But that's going back or kind of going to the question that I asked earlier, just Pineda being that guy that, he's able to kind of guide the players to, there's certain little things. I mean, the talent is there from the guys. It's just when it comes to the final product, we're not able to produce it, whether it comes to a cross of, finishing first in the first touch. It just lacks everywhere.
On that particular play, I don't know if Lennon was tasked with marking that winger or marking Cucho, or if the right winger for Atlanta United was supposed to track back and mark Cucho. When the ball is on the other side of the field, it looked to me like everybody shifted over like they're supposed to, with Lennon taking the zone right in front of the goal. And I think he expected that the right winger was coming back, or was supposed to have already been back, tracking Cucho. Mm-hmm. That's my take on that goal. When Lennon saw that whoever was supposed to mark him didn't, he then tried to get over, but by then it was too late. And as far as Lennon's crossing, I've asked some guys this with the tape recorders turned off. When crosses are put in from the inline or close to the inline, they're typically supposed to go to the back post. So that's where Lennon puts his crosses. There's supposed to be somebody there. Too often, there's not somebody there. So in most cases, he's putting the ball where he's supposed to. It's just the person who's supposed to be there isn't there.
Yeah.
For whatever that's worth.
And just to add on a little bit, like,
and he's a smart player. He's going to execute the game plan.
Yeah.
He doesn't fall asleep at the wheel.
Just another thing to add on. I've seen it a bunch this year with especially George Campbell, but the center back, when the ball kind of advances past the line and transition, that they begin to press. Do you have any thoughts on that? And Parada did it on that first goal there.
Ask that again, please.
It was I've seen a lot this year where center back steps up and kind of goes away from the line. And George Campbell did it against Austin, and then now with Columbus. And I just don't feel like when they run up there, they're not putting in a tackle. They're just kind of, getting big, trying to just press forward. What do you think about that?
They are supposed to step up. I don't know if they're supposed to make a tackle or if they're supposed to just to press. Mm-hmm. I haven't asked that question, but you are right in that observation. They will step up and try to pressure because you don't want to give the guy time to pick a pass. Of course, you also don't want to get beat and have your line broken. But and again, that's inexperience for Campbell. He wasn't supposed to be playing a lot this year, but he is, and then he got hurt. So we'll just have to see what happens.
So I think, we've kind of pretty much gone over the defense, over the 9 spot in midfield, and the only one spot we haven't hit is the goalkeeper. Rocco, in my opinion, was not the guy that I thought that was going to be, basically under the responsibility. But I don't think that he's done a bad job in the recent games. If anything, we could have got blown out, in a couple of games if it wasn't because of him. So, personally, I think he's a guy worth keeping. Guzan's, his age is pretty high. I don't think that he's going to come back to a certain position, just my personal take, but who knows, man. The guy could just come back and just be the starter again. But with Rocco, who else is giving Rocco any competition? Because Gudiño apparently is just filling in that second spot.
That's it. It's Rios Novo and Gudiño are the only two. Sometimes Garces will come up from the twos to train, but Rios Novo is going to be another interesting one because you got Guzan coming back next year, you got Castanera coming back next year, you got Garces on a homegrown, and Rios Novo. I think that you can directly point a finger at just 2 goals that he's given up this year. One was the free kick against Orlando, and the other was, I can't remember, but I remember
The
thinking
Galaxy,
to
I believe,
myself,
or he made a bad mistake. I think
I
it was
can't.
Galaxy.
Two or three, I guess you could point a finger at. The rest, team breakdowns, so to speak. But yeah, I think he's been a lot better than I expected. He's got good reflexes. He seems to be getting more comfortable with his teammates. His passing is really good. I just don't know what's going to happen to him next season.
Just to add on to that comment about Garces, do you think that in the future that Garces is going to be your number one guy, or we should move to look for another Brad Guzan in Europe or Mexico?
I think it's way too early to tell. Way too early to tell
He's
what
shown
they're
out
going to
though
do.
with the twos. I've really
Yeah,
liked what I've seen with him.
yeah. I mean, and he's constantly under fire too.
Yeah.
They've had some big scoring games against him because of all the injuries they've had on their back line as well. But yeah, he's performed well.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, just this is a random question, but earlier this year, Atlanta United, or not Atlanta United, but the city of Atlanta, got chosen to host the World Cup in 2026. You're gonna be covering that. What does it feel like? What is that excitement like? I mean, even 4 years before to that, man.
No, you got to knock on wood on that one. That's 4 years away. I hope that I'm covering the World Cup in 4 years. That would be a dream come true. No, growing up, in Atlanta, I never ever thought the city would get to host a World Cup game. It's outstanding. I'm still kind of giddy when I think about it. The announcement that night, we were sitting at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, kind of waiting on it to pop up, and then of course it popped up as being a Midwest city, and we're all like, "Is that a typo? Do they do that? Do they mean to put somebody else in there?" And then it was certified, for lack of a better word. And so now we get to go. And the second most exciting day, or the 2 or 3 most exciting days are going to be when the cities are lined up with what games. And I think Atlanta will get a semifinal and a group stage because it's the expanded World Cup. So there's going to be more group stage games. And the next one is the pot. What teams will be playing in Atlanta? Yeah. And then that's when the real fun begins, because hopefully we'll get to go out and do a little traveling and getting to write a whole bunch of feature stories about some of those players and teams and things like that. It should be a lot of fun.
And then another quick fun question. Do you think Thiago Almada could play in the Benz in 2026 for Argentina?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess it just depends on where he goes next. I don't think playing for Atlanta United will get him to the World Cup with Argentina. Mm-hmm. But I do think he's got a really bright future. I think he's immensely skilled. His size is, I guess I'd be a little bit concerned about if I were a team. But to me, he's got all the tools and he's got some of the tools that Barco didn't have, and Pitti didn't have. But I think he's going to be a fantastic player.
Hmm. So we have a couple of guys here like throwing some questions. So what's going to happen to Raul Godinez? Did he feel betrayed because he signed thinking that he was going to start? Do they even? I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm just speculating, but do you really think that they go out, and get a lone player and be like, all right, you're gonna get the starting position or something, or is it, just work your way to that spot, basically?
Yes, no one gets promised a starting position. That's one of the reasons Viaba left, is he wanted to promise some more playing time, and Atlanta United couldn't make that promise. Now, Godinez was brought to compete, and Rios Novo has beaten him for the starting job, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and also we have another one. Who's your Darren replacement? Like, who do you want as a Darren replacement? I mean, it's kind of hard to go into specifics, but just the overall, like, what kind of traits would this new guy need to have to basically be just as successful as Darren was, or any close to what he was?
Well, the only thing I know is that Atlanta United never hires anybody who you think they're going to hire. For Pineda may be the only one that everyone thought he was going to get the job, and he got the job. But all the other hires, Darren Eales, no one knew who Darren Eales was when he was hired. Carlos Bocanegra, no one expected that. Going back to the first VP of business, I've got COVID brain. I can't remember her name right now. Her, Katie Griggs wasn't even working at the time that Atlanta United had her to replace Alicia Rodriguez. That's it, Alicia Rodriguez, as VP of business. The skills that they'll need is the one thing that Darren was one of the many things that Darren was good at was creating and maintaining a culture. That's a difficult thing to do. And he was able to do it. And so that person needs to continue to foster this culture and try to figure out how to stop these injuries from happening. Because I was actually going back and looking at the MLS Cup winning season of 2018. And I think the team lost like 120 games because of injuries that season. Player games because of injuries. So this has been a constant problem. I don't know if it's the scouting of the players, if maybe they need to change something in the medicals they're doing, if they can even do that. I don't know. So I don't really have a name for you for a Darren replacement. It's not going to be me. That's the only thing I can tell you. It will not be me. I don't think it'll be Carlos, and I don't think it'll be James either. So that's it.
Yeah, and I mean, we really have barely mentioned Bocanegra, but you know, just with him, obviously, I don't remember right after Darren Eales left, basically, or that it was announced that he was going to be leaving. I don't remember who exactly said that Bocanegra was basically not going to be that replacement guy, and I feel like, you know, whoever, or for the ones that at least know about this, kind of like it was kind of a sign relief, because I don't want to throw shade at him, but I mean, it seems like more times than anything, he's gotten more stuff wrong than the stuff he's done right. I mean, there's been stuff like where, you know, the Moreno deal. I mean, you got him. His salary is not too high. Bringing him out of Uju, I don't think was, you know, a bad thing as well. What he did with Gutman, you know, I think that was pretty well planned as well. But there's been times where, I mean, you have the George and Zan deal, you have stuff that, you know, just, I feel like we're overpaying for the players, you know, when a lot of teams, and I mean, perfect example, LAFC, you know, they're pulling like crazy strings. I don't know how they're able to get all these players in these crazy deals. And, you know, we're talking about players that could easily start in any team, like anywhere around the world, basically.
I don't think it was Steve Cannon that told us Carlos wouldn't be the guy, but I think it was something along the lines of the guys who are in their roles now, we like them in their current roles. So that was the VP of business, and that's Carlos, who's kind of the VP of soccer for the franchise. I don't think Carlos has the business experience and background to be president of the franchise. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think he does. That's why I think it'll be someone from outside. They have hired a search firm for that. There's really only been a few deals that Bocanegra has made that I didn't understand. Jurgen Damm was one, but in Carlos's defense, they brought in Jurgen Damm, Eric Lopez, and Moreno all around the same time because they were trying to make the playoffs. They did not want to give up on the season. They were really pushing them at the playoffs. So they had to overpay a little bit. And then the rules changed, and Eric Lopez ended up not being able to join the first team because of this bizarre little change in MLS rules. Ended up having to stay with the twos. And then Jurgen Damm, he's a guy, super nice guy, but just could never figure out what he wanted to do once he had the ball. Do I want to pass? Do I want to shoot? He ends up doing neither. Moreno did kind of spark the offense, but then, you know, I think instincts kind of took over a little bit with him, and he just kind of became a guy that just liked to dribble, does like to dribble way too much. There's been a couple of other deals that have been bizarre, but not deals that I would question. The Huzetu salary I would question, the Heinemann salary I would question. I think both players, when they were bought in, you understood why. But when the salaries came out, it's like, that's a bit much, because neither were really playing for their clubs. So I don't know why they had to be paid all that money to come to Atlanta United.
So, well, no, we don't have any more questions on here, but just overall, we have what I think 9 games left, 8 games left, somewhere in
Eight.
between there.
Eight.
Yep.
We're playing DC next at home. Afterwards, we have a pretty tough schedule. I mean, you got to play Philly at home. You got to play them away. You got to play Portland. You got to play Toronto, Orlando, New England, and basically your last home game will be against New York City. Tough, like pretty much like the toughest schedule Atlanta United could possibly have. Given the fact where they're laying, in the position that they're in. How many points are they below the playoff line? 3, right?
5.
4? Or I'm back a week, so
With 5 teams in between them and 7th.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, honestly, I kind of want to stick with my thing. I don't want to say that we still have any hope because just given the fact how we play and just the 90-minute performance that I don't get that. I never really get a 90-minute performance, like I mentioned it earlier, and that's something that worries me because I don't expect this team to like really go toe to toe with all these teams like throughout the whole 90 minutes, especially New York, Philly, those type of teams. Just Doug, your personal prediction when it comes to us making the playoffs or not. What are your takes on that?
Well, you're not out of it until you get that little E and a dash by your name. But I will be stunned if they can make the playoffs. 5 points behind, 5 teams to try to get past, all of whom significantly improved their rosters in this most recent window. To your point, I've asked Brooks Lennon and a couple other guys if y'all haven't fixed some of this stuff yet. Why should people expect it to be fixed with, I think it was 9 games to go, is when I asked that question. It's just, the probabilities based on what we've seen this season is it's not going to happen. But I guess there's still a chance.
What about you, James? What do you take?
I don't know, man. It all starts with Sunday, man. Just you got to take it one game at a time. And especially if we lose Sunday, DC United, come on. But you get a big win Sunday, but you start having short weeks. You play weekdays. There's still 2 more weekday games, I believe, and that could actually only 1, but that could just kill you, especially traveling to Chester. And
no, there's 2, Philadelphia and Orlando.
Philadelphia. Orlando. Yeah, but man, it's gonna be difficult. And I mean, the ball's in their court. I mean, if they go on a big run, you're playing against teams that they're in your area, but I can't see the change, but I would like it to happen. It's just one game at a time. You just got to push through, man. But
and it kind of seemed that way. I think who was the first that we played in August? I think it was Seattle, and it was that big, huge like momentum booster for the team. And then I think we played New York Red Bulls after, and it was just a big down, like a disappointment sort of, because you felt like if the team went on that run or at least was able to pick up points, they wouldn't be in the position that they are. Kind of like everything has played out in their favor. The teams that are above Atlanta United, they've dropped points and all this, but we still haven't been able to take advantage of it. And
the thing I'll point out about Atlanta United, though, in its history, is it has led a charmed life when it comes to playoffs. If you remember 2 years ago, even though everything went wrong in 2020, they still had a chance to make the playoffs on the last game of the season. And it just didn't happen. Mm-hmm. So that's I guess, a little bit of hope to hold on to.
Yeah. There's a question here or not a question, but Josh Simmons says it's crazy how we're on pace for a second playoff season in the last 3 years, and the attendance is still top of MLS. That's a good point. That's really a good point. The fact that people are still showing out for the team, and I mean, they have their moments, but I mean, the
Yeah.
support is there definitely.
Hey, I'll show up to every game no matter what, man. Season ticket holder, I'll still show up for the team, man. It's just I love watching the team play, no matter how good or bad at all. I just love the sport, and I love the fans too, man. It's just the match day experience is great no matter what. But especially when we win a game, like it's memories like the Andrew Gutman goal against Seattle. You're like, damn, this is great. I love going to this. And yeah, I mean, if we're decision day at home, if we're guaranteed out of the playoffs, I'll still show up. I'll show up for the team. Watch us play one more time before we get at it next year. But I just want to go and want to watch soccer, man. This is what I love to do.
That's coming from a fan that's literally like there every freaking game.
Yeah, I show up, man.
Man.
I just want to watch the team.
Yeah. Hey, man. I mean, that's one thing that I like definitely respect a lot, from teams that just kind of go through that rough patch and they still get that support. I mean, not just here in MLS, but you kind of see that from other teams where, whether you see big teams like, I mean, well, I think it was like more than 10 years ago whenever River Plate went down to second division. And I mean, their fans were still showing up. I mean, even though they burned their stadium down basically, but I mean, they were still showing out. And I mean, that's one thing I got to respect, from the fans and, just the people that love the team and like the sport, like you say, overall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So,
true.
Doug, honestly, man, yeah, I mean, we're pretty much closing into the hour mark. Before we go, man, as usual, you could always find us on Feel of Sports Podcast on YouTube and other social media other social media networks like Twitter, Facebook. We're on Spotify as well. Doug Robertson, I know you're on. You have a podcast as well. I don't know if you want to give out your information on that. If people want to go ahead and follow you, or go listen to
Yeah.
your stuff.
You can find me on Twitter at Doug Robertson AJC. That's DougRoberson AJC. On Facebook at Atlanta United News Now. You can find my podcast, Southern Fried Soccer, on Spotify, Google, Apple, any podcasting platform. And we take voicemails for the podcast. I'll take your DM questions. I'll take your email questions. And we typically do a preview and a post game for every game. It's doing really well. And I've enjoyed being on y'all's show. And I hope it continues to work well for y'all.
Yeah, man. Doug, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, man, I mean, we really appreciate you coming on here. I mean, I've anybody that comes on here, is just I really appreciate their time and everything because I know like myself, I mean, I'm pretty busy and I know everybody else got other stuff going on and everything, but yeah. Thank you, Doug. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yeah, anytime.
Yeah,
if you ever need me, let me know.
All right, man. Thank you so much, dude.
All right, talk to y'all later.
All right.